Hello, friends. Could not get my hair to sit down. It's the heat and humidity. I mean, I put a flat iron to it, but it's gonna look. I put a flat iron to it, but it is gonna look not nice again in about 10 minutes. Um, it's time for a throwback. It's another vintage sewing pattern. This one I received as a gift, I guess. Uh, my friend's mom, like several years ago, randomly sent me a box full of vintage patterns. So that's actually where a lot of my vintage patterns are coming from. And this one is vintage circa 1991. We got the stirrup pants happening there. But what I'm actually interested in is this jacket here. So let me tell you why August is the perfect time to make your autumn clothes. Because obviously autumn is coming up pretty quickly. I mean, September is coming up soon and it's gonna, I know it's hot now, but it's gonna start getting cold soon. And I am excited for that. So I'm gonna be ready and I'm gonna have this jacket ready by the time it actually gets cold out. Yeah. So, oh, let me show you the fabric that I'm gonna use. I have a lot of this. Um, I bought it from someone on Poshmark who was like selling off their mother's stash. So I like that it's got a border and then like in the middle is the like pine tree print. Um, I don't know if you know this, but the pine tree is like the symbol of love between my husband and I. Sometimes we even call each other Pine Tree. It's kind of cute. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of the pine. If there is enough here, and I kind of think there might be, if there's enough here, I would really like to make something like for both of us that matches pine needles. Yeah, man, there's got to be like at least 4 yards here. So that's the plan. I guess I better get cutting. Something that I find interesting about this pattern is that the pieces are labeled with letters rather than numbers. And here on the center back seam, well, this is the center back. Well, it's not a seam. It's actually on the fold, which is probably why it looks like that. But yeah, this is a dotted line. And of course it has that symbol that means on the fold. But yeah, this is interesting. You know, when I was a little kid, I actually had some stir pants. Like little kid. Like 2 or 3. I hated them. I would like stick them outside of my shoes and like drag them behind me because I did not like them. So stirrup pants can stay in the past. Since this fabric's got the border on it, like this, I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to pin it. Ooh, where did those holes come from? All right. So, oh, damn, yeah, okay. Well, I got some holes in it. I guess I'm gonna have to cut around them. But I think what I'm gonna have to do, because it's got a border on it, is I'm gonna have to pin the two pieces. Like when I fold it in half, I'm gonna have to pin this together. So this is what's gonna end up like. And there's a hole here that's not in pieces right now. So I'm gonna line up this pocket pattern piece exactly where I'm going to place it, and I'm going to mark blue for the right side, because I want that diamond pattern to match perfectly. And flip it over, and I'm going to do red for the right side. I'm just making little dots where the corners of the diamonds are. And I'm going to individually cut each pocket piece. And if you do that, make sure that you flip it over so you have a left and a right. Well, that only took half the day. Time to go eat some lunch and go ride my bike. Stay stitching certain areas that we don't want to stretch can be rather important, especially if you're working with a fabric that has a lot of stretch, or if you're working in like a curved area where part of it's like on the bias. But in this case, the fleece does have a pretty decent amount of stretch to it, so we are stay stitching the neck edge. I believe I mentioned that I was going to put the pockets on the outside of the jacket, in the sense that, like, rather than sticking your hand into a completely flat item, the actual pocket is going to be on the outside. So that's why I made such an effort to make sure that the patterns lined up. Like the print on the fabric, that pattern. Okay. So anyways, I made some notches here where these big dots are on the pocket piece. So I made notches, and I'm going to reinforce stitching on the pocket piece. And I'm doing this reinforced stitching at 5/8 because that's what the seam allowance is, and I'm going to end up having to cut and turn under where the hand opening is. So here, where my original notches are, I'm going to clip to but not through the stitching. This stitching line is also a really great indicator for where the fold should be. What we're doing here is folding this hand opening to the inside, and we're going to stitch it down eventually. So yeah, I'm going to slide my hand under there when I go to put stuff in my pocket. It can sometimes be difficult to get started at the very edge of the fabric, so what I'm doing here is back tacking as the beginning, and then I'm going to go forwards. I'm deviating a little bit from what the directions say, but I'm actually lining up with the 3/8 line. Fleece doesn't really fray too badly, so I'm not overly concerned about having the edge completely covered. I think it would be too bulky if I decided to double underturn it. In case you're curious, this is what the inside of the pocket looks like. And now I am going to lay out the front of the jacket, put the pocket on top of it, make sure it lines up, and I'm going to pin it down. I will be using plenty of pins because I want this to look good. So the plan of attack for this is that I'm going to baste around the edge of this, and then I'm going to use one of the I'm going to use the overcast overlock top stitch function on my cover stitch machine. It's gonna look great. I'm gonna baste all around this and make it look good, and then I'm going to use the decorative overstitching to go all along this edge, and then my hand will go in here when I use the pocket. Longest stitch on my machine because I'm basting, and I'm basting about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then I'm gonna cover stitch over it. Since I'm using the same color thread as the cover stitching is going to be, and also it's a thread that pretty well blends in with the print on the fabric, I probably won't take out my basting, but if it looks dumb, then I will. I threaded up my cover stitch machine. I only have 4 cones of this teal color, so the thread on the inside is black. Just don't look too closely at the inside of my garment. Alright, so I've got 3 needles, all of them threaded, and then this right here will swing across and pull that thread to make a cool design. In fact, I'm gonna do a test right now just to make sure that it works and I like it. Alright, this is what I want it to look like on the outside. This is what I want it to look like on the inside. So, I would like to point out that what you're seeing here is a sort of a pseudo flat lock. So I'm getting the needle, the right needle, as opposed to the left needle, the right needle, on the edge of the fabric, like the edge of the pocket fabric, and then it's encasing the edge of the fabric in the stitching. That's why I have the clear I mean, I pretty much always sew with the clear plastic foot, but in an application like this, it's extra important to have that so that I can see directly where the needle is going. I would like to do all of the cover stitching on this, in this cool design. That's the plan. Oh yeah, so cover stitch doesn't turn nicely, so I'm actually gonna just sew all the way down, and then I'm gonna pick up again and sew to the side. So that's the plan. Here where the seam ends, I just pulled the threads to the back and tied a knot. I'm going to be sewing the front sleeve to the front of the jacket. Since the seam allowance on the pattern is 5/8, but my serger is set currently to 4.5 millimeters, I need to trim off approximately that much. I made a point of cutting them so that the print lines up perfectly. So of course I have to sew them to make sure that the print lines up perfectly. I'm also serging the center seam on the hood. Alright, so now I am hemming the hood using the special stitch. I did a test, which is why I've got this weird lump of fabric back here. Let me just trim that off. Yeah. Here we go. So yeah, this stitch, it has been suggested to me that this is called a tunnel stitch, but I'm not convinced that's accurate. So, when it comes to using the cover stitch to hem things, it is completely okay to use the pins. I have the head sticking out this direction because it makes it so much easier to take them out before I actually get to them. Definitely do not stitch over the pins. It's bad for the machine, and also it can bend or break your pins. I know pins don't last forever, but we don't need to be actively harming them. Fleece is pretty thick, so this seam in the hood is definitely going to need a little extra attention to get through that foot. right, we have babied it through that seam. One of the nice things about fleece being so thick is that I can feel with my fingers this ridge here where the underside of the hem ends, and I can just make sure that that's lined up ideally with this outer needle. And just do a quick inspection on the inside to make sure that you have in fact caught the entire thing. Just sewing my tag in. Now I'm pinning the hood to the body of the jacket. At the front, the center front, I guess, of the jacket where the hood attaches, it's imperative that I leave enough space for the seam allowance for the zipper. On the pattern piece, there is a dot to mark that. It's also just as good to measure it, because we have already finished the edge of the hood, but we have not, of course, finished the front of the jacket. Oh, and I also did do some gathering stitches here, although I don't think I'll be gathering it a whole lot, but that's what I'm doing. I don't know if I've said this yet, but fleece, well, fleece does stretch, but like this jacket is not like a particularly tight garment, so it would be a good candidate for someone who does not have a serger or a cover stitch machine. It would be completely fine to just do the whole thing with a straight stitch machine. In fact, when I was a kid, my mom made me a jacket out of fleece, and I know that she did not have a serger. She just had a straight stitch machine. Zipper time! I bought a zipper for this, so I chose something that's kind of stylish. Like the brass color here. I think the way the zipper is put in the directions is kind of unusual, but I'm gonna follow the directions because I don't think I've put a zipper in this way before. And got our pins, and I guess we're gonna start by pinning and pressing under the seam allowance at the front of the jacket. Fleece doesn't generally press super well, so this will be interesting. It's not like you can't press fleece, it's just that it's kind of spongy and bulky and won't, it's not gonna crease nicely. But I'm having the pins stick out this way because I'm most likely gonna have to leave them in place and then sew with the pins there. Just be very careful not to sew the pin. How's it going?
Camera?
You're new! So this is the front edge, and I have to sew, well, I have to baste for now the zipper kind of like that, because it's a exposed zipper. Not really sure yet what we're gonna do with the seam allowance and with the tab at the top of the zipper, because it's gonna be a big bulkiness here, but we'll figure it out. So I guess I'm just gonna, maybe I should pin, I think I'll do that. I'll pin the zipper with the pins that I use for pressing, and then it'll just all be one together. It'll be great. And then I'll baste it down. I might start my baste a little bit down from the zipper pull, and then maybe if I need to, I'll come back and baste that little bit there. Alright, now I'm doing the other side. Something that I like about doing the zipper this way is that I can see really well whether or not the the print on the fabric is lining up, which is nice. I mean, like, it's nice that I can see it when I'm sewing it, and hopefully it looks nice when I'm done. Unfortunately, it looks like I didn't put enough work into making the front match. Oh, this is gonna be funny because like everything else is like matchy-matchy, and then I just like, the front, whatever, who cares? Never mind that it's right in front. Okay, so it looks like the next thing I'm gonna do is pin the facing to the neck edge, baste it, and then serge the back edge. Okay, so down here below the zipper, I'm just gonna like sew the seam allowance. I'm hand tacking the front facing to the shoulder seams. Now I'm basting the inside of the zipper. This is the facing. I have the facing a little bit away from the zipper teeth just to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the functioning of the zipper. Basting closer to the zipper teeth, I'm going to take that out. Now that I've got all of that basting out, I'm going to stitch directly on this line of basting, just to make sure it's extra secure. And I'm going to stitch directly on top of it so that I don't have to take that one out. Look at that! Look at it! I impress myself. My zipper. Look at my zipper. I think it looks so nice. And now that means that it is time to do the underarm seam. Also known as the side seam. But, you know, it's all in one. So I'm going to start, of course, by pinning the armpit seam together. Alright, here we have the arm and the side seam here, and I think that I should baste, or at least straight stitch this particularly, because I don't want to accidentally serge my pocket. That would be bad, because then I couldn't get my hands in my pockets, or anything else important that I might want to put in there. So before I get the serging into the side seams, I want to try it on, because I definitely do not want this to be big or tight. Yeah, I want it to be kind of loose, and I wanted to make sure that it's, you know, sufficiently loose in the body before I serge it all up. And I do think that it is. And oh, it is so cozy. Oh, this is the nicest feel. Oh. This fabric is, I love it. I love it. Cozy, cozy, cozy. This is going to be the perfect autumn jacket. Alright, so we got the pockets down here. Alright, now let's get this serging on and then we can do the hands. I think I've mentioned unseasonably cold in the past like 3 or 4 of my videos. Maybe I'm just like getting old and this is what normal is now, is that what I used to think was unbelievably hot is now comfortable, and what I used to think was comfortable is now kind of cold. The instructions actually call for bias tape, but since what I'm doing with it is a completely straight line, it makes perfect sense, since I don't currently have any bias tape in my stash, to just make a strip out of fabric that I do have. Alright, so this right here, where that lines up. I'm wondering if I should tack this to this or have it go on the inside. Probably have it on the inside. Got to leave this end open, of course, because that's where the elastic is going to get fished in, and then I'm, I guess, going to stitch it down. It's August. We're getting the same amount of sunlight that we get in, like, April. So it's maybe not that unseasonable to be only in the 60s, especially in the mornings, especially when it's been dry. Now, of course, I'm gonna turn around and go the other way. Ah! Somehow a wasp got into the lab. I'm absolutely terrified of wasps. I'm not even allergic, and I'm terrified of them. Molly, can you take care of the wasp? No, of course she can't. She's a cat. I'm gonna have to be brave. Take care of this wasp. The story shall resume afterwards. Hi, Big. And let's resume sewing. Alright, and now I can trim off all of those extra fluffy threads that are hanging out. So now what I'm going to do is I got the elastic, got a safety pin on there, and I'm going to fish the elastic through the casing. Trying to keep it really flat, etc., so that it doesn't bunch up and be weird. There is a tool for fishing elastic through casings, but I don't have one. A safety pin works just fine. So when I worked, the first sewing factory that I worked at, we had the elastic fishing tools, and they broke really easily. I mean, we also used them like several times a day. I've got the elastic just peeking out this end of the casing. It's not tight yet, but so I'm gonna stitch right over it and make sure that it's held in place. Putting the elastic in the cuffs. Ever since that incident with the wasp. I every time I get slightly poked by a pin, I have a miniature panic attack. Alright, I've got the machine set up again. I think I'm just going to stitch off the edge of this test piece and onto this piece. It's going to be a little bit weird with this being so thick, but it's a thing. I'm wondering if I should like stitch this shut first, just to make sure this holds in place. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. So hold tight. That way, when I go to do the cover stitching, it can't shift around on me. I've opted out of cover stitching the cuffs, and instead I am just going to do a second line of stitching, and then I'm going to stitch in the ditch of the seams in order to make sure that the elastic stays flat and doesn't bunch up. It is August 1991 in small town America. Our protagonist is enjoying a cool morning on the waterfront. For perspective, some current events are Clarence Thomas is nominated to Supreme Court by President George H.W. Bush, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer is arrested in Milwaukee, amateur video captures police beating Rodney King in Los Angeles and the officers involved are later indicted, Operation Desert Storm begins, and the very first website was created. Activewear was a big trend in the fashion of 1991. Wearing activewear, such as leotards, leggings, sweatpants, and athletic sneakers, were common among teens and youngsters too. Even though these were made for the gym and working out, people also liked to wear them casually. Another trend was to layer pieces of clothing over each other, that is, layering oversized t-shirts over turtlenecks, layering socks over leggings, etc. Trending hairstyles included bangs accessorized with headbands and scrunchies. In pop culture, FIFA held the first ever Women's World Cup soccer. Spanish cyclist Miguel Indurain won the Tour de France. The New York Times bestseller of the year is The Sum of All Fears, written by Tom Clancy. The #1 song of the year, according to Billboard, is Bryan Adams' Everything I Do It For You. Will this song remain popular in the coming years? NWA's Hey, I can't say that.
Why do I call myself a nigga, you ask me?
Became the first ever rap album to reach the #1 spot. You may be surprised to learn that in 1991, I turned 1 year old. What do 1-year-olds wear? Onesies, etc.